Channeling has become all the rage these days. And while it can't be denied that some channeled messages are incredibly profound, let's be honest. A lot of what's being promoted as spiritual wisdom is confusing, contradictory, and some of it can actually be harmful. Just because a message is full of love and light jargon doesn't necessarily mean it's coming from a place of truth or love. That's why being able to tell genuine spiritual teachings from everything else isn't optional. It's essential. In this video, I'll show you how to easily spot spiritual misinformation, tune into your own inner knowing, and figure out which messages might change your life. What is up? I am Ian with Alternate Timelines, where we explore topics like reincarnation, extraterrestrial contact, psychic abilities, metaphysics, and the infinite potential that lies within each of us. If you vibe with this kind of content, I invite you to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment or review on whichever platform you're on. It only takes a few seconds of your time and supports the show in a massive way. Your support matters, and it's greatly appreciated. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of discernment. Discernment is simply the ability to correctly judge the quality of something. In the context of this video, we'll mainly be focusing on how to assess the quality of channeled messages. And what you learn here can be applied to a wide range of spiritual teachings and situations. So make sure to watch all the way through to the end, because you don't want to miss any of the tips that'll help you tell truth from fiction. When it comes to any kind of channeled material, there are two very important questions that we need to ask ourselves. Where is this information coming from? And how can we tell when someone is relaying the information clearly without adding their own spin on it? There are a lot of channelers out there delivering contradictory messages, so it's only natural to wonder what's real and what isn't. First, let's look at the possible sources of information, because when listening to channelers, it can appear that they're getting data from a variety of places. Channeled material can come from personal memories, spiritual databanks like the Akashic Records, from disembodied beings like guides, angels, demons, or other entities, or directly from source. Now I get that on a fundamental level, everything is an emanation from the one divine, capital S source. And, from a human perspective, it's normal to perceive information as coming from different places. Mystical and esoteric teachings state that everything that has happened or will ever happen across all time, space, and dimensions is retained in a sort of cosmic memory bank. Think of it like a vast, infinite library. Memories of a single lifetime can be thought of as one chapter of a single book. Accessing past life memories is like going back to check out previous chapters of a book. When someone accesses the Akashic Records, it's like they're going to an aisle in the library, grabbing a book off the shelf, and retrieving that information for themselves. When someone receives information from a being or entity, that being acts as an intermediary who finds the book, reads it, and relays the information to the channeler. In either of those scenarios, the information must be interpreted, either by the channeler or by the being delivering the information to the channeler. More steps in the process introduce more opportunities for a message to become distorted. Channelers often receive large amounts of raw data in the form of images, sounds, smells, tastes, and feelings, often all at once. This sort of direct consciousness-to-consciousness telepathic way of communicating is much different than most of us are used to experiencing in our everyday lives. It's nearly impossible for a channeler to transmit all of the information they receive. So, on some level, either consciously or unconsciously, they have to decide what information to share and how to share it. In a nutshell, a channeler's job is to convert a huge amount of raw data into easy-to-digest verbal symbols we call words. It's definitely not a precise science, and some channelers are better at transmitting information more precisely than others. Even if the channeler is able to convey an undistorted message, the listener still has to make their own interpretation of what was presented by the channel, which is yet another opportunity for the meaning of a message to be misconstrued. At a certain point, channeling starts to look like a convoluted game of telephone. There can be multiple layers of interpretations and intermediaries between the original source of the information and what a person ultimately receives as a channeled message. Now, I do believe that there are examples of high-quality, undistorted spiritual teachings that come through channeled messages. The Law of One, A Course in Miracles, and the Seth material are all examples of what I would consider genuine spiritual wisdom. And it's probably no coincidence that they each convey similar teachings around the importance of love and unity. What I've observed more recently is an abundance of so-called channeled messages that revolve around doom and gloom and drama and fear. True spiritual messages and teachings have always been focused on love and unity. Love thy neighbor as you love yourself. Do no harm. Only love is real. Those fundamental messages are consistently delivered by different spiritual teachings in their own unique ways. So that begs the question, where does the doom and gloom stuff come from? And who are the entities that channelers rely on to retrieve information from the great cosmic library? Channelers often talk about their guides, but what does that really even mean? How can we tell if channeled information is coming from an authentic place of love or from a lower vibrational source? Let's break it down the simplest way possible. There exists a wide spectrum of beings. On one end, high vibrational beings. On the other end, low vibrational beings. Pure love emanates the highest frequency and is the foundational unit of everything in existence. Although this may not appear to be true from our human perspective, everything and everyone is made out of love at its core. What we call darkness, evil, bad, or low vibrational is a lack of love being expressed. Darkness is not its own thing independent of light. Darkness is the absence of light. Hatred or evil is not its own thing independent of love. They are the absence of love. Everything exists on the spectrum of love, but not everything expresses the same amount of love. Evil happens when the love that exists at one's core is smothered by layers of trauma and pain. Beings we call evil have been disconnected from the love that's deep inside of them for so long that they've often forgot it's even there. All souls emanate from the same capital S source. Higher vibrational beings reflect that foundational understanding in their messages. In regards to guides and different beings that channelers connect with, it's important to keep in mind that just because a spirit does not currently reside within a body doesn't mean that that being is inherently wise or enlightened. When a soul drops their meat suit, they don't immediately get access to all of the secrets of the universe. An individual spirit's growth and evolution happens progressively. Nobody gets to skip a grade. We all have to learn our lessons. The more a soul understands this, the more love it expresses, and the higher vibrational frequency that being becomes over time, because love is the highest vibration. Earth, on the other hand, has a very dense and relatively low vibrational frequency. This makes Earth a great place to learn lessons about the contrast between light and darkness. Because of its naturally lower vibration, higher vibrational beings don't spend a lot of time just hanging around here. When a truly higher vibrational being comes to Earth, it's for a specific reason and usually for a relatively short amount of time. Think of what it's like to hold a piece of wood underwater. Most kinds of wood are less dense than water and float up to the surface. To hold a piece of buoyant wood underwater requires effort. The same thing happens when a higher frequency soul comes to Earth to communicate with someone. Because of the difference in frequencies, it requires a certain amount of effort to come here. When a ghost or familiar entity is just hanging around on Earth, it's a sign that they probably aren't of a frequency that's significantly higher than most of the people who are still in a body. When a channeler is just kicking it with their guides, as if they're always floating around in the ether within arm's reach, we should wonder, what's the likelihood that those spirits hanging out on Earth are particularly enlightened? I'm not trying to put anyone down, because most of what I hear is pretty benign. So, by all means, if you're channeling, do your thing. But if love is anything that unites, we have to ask ourselves, where are the doom and gloom and us versus them and end of the world predictions coming from? What's the likelihood that messages evoking intense negative emotions are coming from a unifying or loving place? Higher frequency beings and teachings always point us towards an understanding that we are all connected and all originate from the same capital S source. They teach us that the ideas of good and bad are based on our misperception of the true nature of reality. And above all else, authentic spiritual teachings remind us that because we all come from the same capital S source, each of us has the direct connection to all of the information we need through our own intuition. One way to look at Earth is that it's a place where souls incarnate to learn specific lessons, from specific experiences that aren't readily available elsewhere. That's one of the reasons different spiritual teachers call this place Earth School. That's because that's what Earth is. It's a school. Different souls have different levels of development and experience. This is a lot like our current school system that segregates students by grade. From that perspective, we can think of true spirit guides like mentors or positive role models who have more knowledge and are further along in their education. Let's pretend that I'm in 3rd grade trying to learn multiplication. A good mentor isn't going to stand over my shoulder and whisper all of the answers to all of my assignments in my ear. A good mentor will only give me tips and hints about my homework to encourage me to be self-sufficient and think independently. A good mentor recognizes that giving me all of the answers will only create bigger challenges in the long run. Because if they're giving me the answers, I'm not actually learning the fundamental and necessary skills that I came here to learn. A good mentor will allow me to struggle with memorizing my times tables and make me put in the work because they understand the negative consequences that can come from developing a codependent relationship. Caring about someone's well-being and personal development often means that the best thing you can do for them is to allow that person to figure things out on their own. So when I see a channeler who looks like they're just chilling in a room full of invisible enlightened masters who happily give them all the answers to any question whenever they want, I get very curious, and I make sure to use the discernment practices that I'll be sharing with you shortly. And this brings us back to the second question about how to tell if a channeler is presenting undistorted information or if that person is what we call a clear channel. A person's ability to be a clear channel can depend on a number of factors, like that person's lived experiences, unconscious biases, the amount of experience they have channeling, and overall understanding of the process. One super important point to make here is that good intentions do not and cannot replace a high level of skill. That applies to channeling as much as anything else. Just because someone has good intentions, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are a particularly skilled channeler. Don't take anything at face value and always listen to channeled material with a critical ear. Understand the different ways that messages can become distorted, and above all else, trust your own inner knowing. Ask yourself, does this feel true to me? And follow your gut reaction. Follow the feeling. Much of what comes through in channeled messages is simply unverifiable. It can't be looked up, nor can we use our thinking minds to try to make rational sense of it. Trust your gut, because on a deep level, we all have a direct connection to capital S source and the unbelievable amount of data that it holds. Our conscious thinking minds are simply not made to access or interpret information from source in a meaningful way. But our unconscious mind, on the other hand, does have a much greater capacity to handle large quantities of data. You've probably heard people like Dr. Joe Dispenza or Dr. Bruce Lipton talk about how the unconscious mind controls over 90% of our lives. That's because it's much better at analyzing the huge amount of information that we're taking in through our 5 senses from moment to moment. And that's precisely why it's so important to trust what resonates with you on the level of feelings. The unconscious mind communicates with us through feelings and emotions, while the conscious mind communicates with us through thoughts and that little voice inside of our head. And if you're like me, that voice inside your head probably has a solid track record of getting things wrong. In addition to following our instincts, there are some practical and effective ways to boost our discernment and easily sort out what messages are worthy of our precious attention. When it comes down to it, everyone is capable of channeling, and I have little doubt that most channelers are receiving messages. But we must know if that information is coming from a place of integrity and if it's coming through clearly. One definition of love is anything that unites. That's a great litmus test when it comes to differentiating between high and low vibrational messages. Ask yourself, is this message likely to bring people together or create division? Simple as that. There's another easy way to tell if a message is rooted in universal truth. You should be able to apply that message or teaching directly to your life and experience a positive effect right away in the present moment. That's a clear sign of authentic spiritual wisdom. If what we focus our attention on ultimately determines the quality of our lives, do we really want to spend our time consuming material that isn't helping our soul's growth? If a message is predicting catastrophic future events, or if the contents of that message doesn't improve your experience of life in that moment, then who knows where it's really coming from? It's all good if channeled material is captivating and entertaining. But if the value of a message lies solely in the fact that it's entertaining, let's just call it what it is and leave it at that. Who said all channelings have to contain deep spiritual truths? Surely not every doom and gloom prediction is coming from a demon who's trying to capture your soul. I think a lot of what we're seeing today is coming from well-intentioned people who aren't really clear on what they're doing, don't have the best discernment themselves, and aren't highly skilled. That being said, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there are almost always nuggets of wisdom and useful insights that can be gleaned from many channeled messages. So how can we use this situation to our advantage? How can we begin to strengthen our own intuition and develop confidence in our own abilities to access source knowledge? I'll be honest, I listen to tarot readings, podcasts, and different types of media that feature channeled messages. And I consume that content in a very specific and intentional way. We have to recognize that even the clearest, most impeccably skilled channelers are still never going to get everything right 100% of the time. And it's going to be necessary to discard anything that doesn't resonate with our inner knowing. This isn't an all or nothing, black or white kind of thing. We must stay connected to the subtle emotional cues that our unconscious mind uses to communicate with us, and trust that if anything doesn't feel right, then it's not for us. If a message doesn't resonate, let it go right past you, in one ear and out the other, like water under a bridge or a cloud in the sky. By working with our intuition in this way, we're able to strengthen that intuitive connection. Think of it like putting reps in at the gym. Every rep counts, and over time, they all add up. But this isn't about solely relying on our intuition, because we do have some guide rails, like the questions I mentioned earlier, that we can use to keep us on track. We all have the ability to channel, and if we all have that skill, we could all improve that skill. But unlike the gym, where the focus is on an external set of weights or piece of equipment, channeling can only be developed by going inward and focusing on building a deeper relationship with the self. The skills we develop when learning to channel can have profound implications on our lives and can be used to gain other forms of spiritual knowledge, like past life memories. Remembering past lives is a fascinating phenomena that's often misunderstood. If you want to learn more about the scientific evidence for reincarnation, how consciousness works, and how you can use your new understanding of discernment to find answers hidden in your past, then check out this video right here.